My name is Gerry Meyer, and I was in World War II as an Army nurse. I joined the Army as soon as I graduated from nursing, and that was in the fall of 1943. I wanted to get into the fray sooner because I wanted to do my part for the medical corps in World War II, but I couldn't get my RN until I graduated, and that's what I did. So as soon as I graduated from Jefferson in Philadelphia in 1943, I applied to the Army, and I was taken into the Army Nurse Corps. I was disappointed because I was sent back to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, a place where I almost spent my first 18 years of life living there. I wanted to go overseas and do some actual work on the battlefield, but I requested overseas duty over and over again and with no impact. But finally, they heard me and they sent me for basic training down to Fort Meade, Maryland, and we learned the Army way of doing things in a hospital and how to behave ourselves overseas. And I'll make short work of that. That didn't last very long. And finally, they said, "You're ready for overseas." We joined the 126th Evacuation Group Hospital, and we did the first 6 weeks. We did calisthenics and all kinds of things, marching and learning how to do things the Army way. Well, they said, "You're going overseas now on the Queen Elizabeth." And everybody said, "Oh, a luxury ship." She crossed the Atlantic at that time in 5 days. And she was really a luxury ship. But what we didn't know is they had stripped her of all these nice amenities, and she was a troop ship. She still was able to go across the Atlantic in 5 days, but we had to zigzag because of her speed and her size and the German submarine activity across the Atlantic. We zigzagged instead of going straight. We had no escort for that reason. So we zigzagged all the way. It must have taken, I don't remember the days, but it must have taken 3 or 4 more days. That was an uneventful trip. We sat on the floor and we had bunks against the wall. It was completely converted to a troop ship. And we had a good time and we liked it and we were very happy because at last we were going overseas and we were doing what we trained to do and what we wanted to do. We had new skills and all the enthusiasm that comes with a brand new graduate. And only one night was eventful. They said there were plenty of submarines, German submarines in the Atlantic. They were very active, and so we were not to take off any of our clothes. We were supposed to sleep with everything on that night, that one night, including our boots. And so we didn't mind that. We felt safe. You know, when you're 21 years old and enthusiastic about what you're doing, you feel invulnerable and you feel immortal and nothing's going to happen that's bad. And that's the way we felt. We got through that night, but Some of us took our boots off before morning because if you try to sleep with your boots on, you find your feet hurt, even when you're young and healthy. So we had our boots off, and that's the only thing, but nothing did happen to us that night. And we had abandoned ship drill every morning. So we landed in Glasgow, Scotland after those days, and we were welcomed heartily by the Scottish people. We were in Quonset huts for a few days, maybe it was a week, and then we went by train down to a little town called Swindon, England, in the center of England, and there we finally got to work, and we were taking care of soldiers who had already been in the fray across France, and we took care of all kinds of injuries. Some of them were ambulatory, some of them were bedridden. That was our first opportunity to use penicillin. That was new to medicine at that time, because before that, all we had to fight the infection was all the sulfa drugs, sulfothiazole, sulfadiazine, sulfosuxidine, all those. But now we had penicillin, which was much better. And I was impressed at that time by the soldiers' affection and practical care of those who were unable to feed themselves, unable to hear, and one blind person as a result of his injuries. And those people who were not so badly hurt did everything they could. They went from patient to patient, to those who were bedridden, and did things for them. They fed them, they cheered them up, they read them their mail if they got any, and just generally treated them like brothers. It was wonderful to see that, and they helped us nurses as much as they could. So after a few weeks, and I don't remember how long it was, we started traveling, and we were waiting for transportation across the English Channel. There was so many troops going back and forth across the channel that we had to wait for our turn. And so finally, it was our turn to cross the channel, and the troops in France and Belgium were moving rapidly. We were in 2.5-ton trucks. Scotland, by the way, had been bitter cold, terribly, terribly cold in those Quonset trucks. We didn't have coal, but we had some stoves with coke in them. And we had two surprises going across the channel. One of them was, it was a very rough trip. It was just everything, food, the tables, everything was slid off the tables and everything. But the other one surprise was we had fish for breakfast, and that was the one thing that the Scottish and the English had it plentifully. We had fish for breakfast, and we expected the channel to be a calm time on the water, but it was much rougher than anything in the Atlantic. That was a smooth trip on the Queen Elizabeth, but this was really, really rough. But anyway, we were happy and we enjoyed it. So we started crossing the channel, and I have all of these pictures to show you when we finally set up. But we moved so often, and the troops were moving so often, so rapidly, and we were following them, so that we didn't give as much care as we wanted. And the war was almost ended by the time we finished traveling across France and into Belgium, and we were at the German border, and we were set up, and I have all of these pictures that I'd like to show you about what it was like. And my only complaint was that we hadn't been in 1 or 2 years earlier so that we could have done more, but we did as much as we could at the time. So I have pictures to show you our hospital. We had, we were complete in, we had an operating room and our one anesthetist, a nurse anesthetist, and she had only nitrous oxide and ether. We didn't have pentothal at that time, as I remember. We just relied on nitrous oxide and ether. And we didn't have very good operating room lights. We had our own generator, but at that time, that was it. So would you like to see these pictures? We nurses lived 4 to a tent, and we suffered no problems. We were happy, but it wasn't anything like MASH. There was nobody there making cocktails for us and all those things. That was entertainment, and that was nice. But we weren't there to be entertaining. And we just stuck to business. Our chief nurse was nothing like Hot Lips, and she was all business, and our leader was a physician who was a colonel, and you want me to hold? Okay, let's see. See what I put here. Here I am folding my bedding roll because everything we owned was in a bedding roll, which was our mattress. We were in cots, 4 to a tent, as we moved around France and Belgium. And they were comfortable. They were very hard to roll, though, so every time we moved from one field to another, we had to get up and roll our bedding roll tightly again. And when we got to the next place, the corpsmen set up our tents, and then we unrolled our bedding rolls with all our clothing and everything in it, and spread them out on our cot, and we slept on them. And during our travels, I would like to tell you about the little stray dog that we adopted. We named her Evac, for Evacuation Hospital. And some soldier liberated an accordion. And we had one of my tent mates was named Neville. She was an accomplished pianist, and she also could play the accordion. And so after chores were done at night, she sat down on the ground and played the accordion and held a tin cup out for donations. Of course, we didn't have any money. We did. That was just a little levity. And she had the dog there for entertainment. And that was in France somewhere. I don't remember. We never knew where we were because we were never in a city, and we didn't travel through the cities because they were a shambles. We just traveled in byways in the country roads. But anyway, evac was loved by everybody, and at the end of the war, when we had to leave, we couldn't take her, but someone found a very good home for her, and she, I'm sure she missed us and we missed her, but she had a good home, so we could rest easily about that. And lots of these pictures show my tent mates and me in our tents or rolling up our bedding rolls to make the next move and hope that we could set up and get patients then. And you might show some of these later, Steve, that I can't do now. This was typical. I'm getting ready to move again. And we washed our hair in our helmets, and we had one nice surprise when we were in Belgium in the tiny, tiny farmer's village called Corbion at the top of a mountain. We were there because our colonel said that we needed more operating room gowns, and we better make them ourselves. That was the only way we could get them. And those who could sew, I don't know where the fabric came from, but they were put to work visiting the farmers' houses, and we asked them if we could borrow their sewing machines. So they all turned out to be singers, which was the sewing machine that was prevalent in this country, and my mother had a Singer sewing machine. And we had a little respite and a little fun while they were sewing gowns to go around the village. And someone said, you know, this little town wasn't a town, it wasn't even a hamlet, it was just a few farmers' houses surrounded by fields of crops. And they said, they have a beauty shop here. And we said, wow, that's wonderful, in the middle of a war, washing our hair in our helmets. Now we're going all to the beauty shop because we can't sew, so we weren't put to work sewing gowns for the operating room. Well, the man, I don't know if we call him a beautician or not, but anyway, it was just a ramshackle little shack, and he washed our hair. But the big surprise was after he washed our hair, he picked up the basin, which was behind us, opened the window and threw the dirty water out on the road. And there was no paved roads at that time. It was all dirt packed down hard in ditches, and he just threw it out there, and any garbage, and it was shocking. But anyway, we had one shampoo, and that was an event. That was the great event of the week, that shampoo in the shop, which was and this is one of my tent mates. Her name was Dottie, and she liked being there. We all liked being there. We just complained that we didn't do enough work and we were too late. So anyway, the war finally ended, and ended in, we were on the border of Germany. I guess we were inside Germany, and they said, pack up hastily because now the war is over and you're going to the South Pacific, and you have to get more medications and more equipment and everything. And so I don't remember that trip back across the Atlantic the second time. It was from east to west again. I don't remember anything of that trip, except that one of the soldiers gave me a German pistol and asked me to take it with him. And I said, okay. And then I thought, no, there's something funny about this. And it was illegal for him to do that. And so I gave it back. And that's the only thing I remember about the trip back. And we went to Texas, and we were being supplied with everything we needed to go to the South Pacific. Well, we thought that an invasion of Japan was coming. And so everything was done in haste. And when we were all supplied, President Truman gave the word, and they dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we were out. And he said, if you want to get out, you can. And so they sent us to Arkansas to be relieved of our duties, and I went back to school right away to Jefferson again, and took the continuing education. I became a nurse anesthetist, and that's what I did for the next 36 years. And again, my last 15 years in civilian life, I again took care of veterans, because I worked the last 15 years for the in the VA hospital in Tucson. And in between that times, I had worked in Philadelphia and New York and Texas and other places, just traveling, and because that's what I like to do. And I had lots and lots of very good experiences in the Army. My only regret that I wasn't 2 years older, so that I could have been in at the beginning of the war instead 6 months at the end. So it was a fine experience, and I loved those veterans, and had a lot of fun taking care of them at the time the war was on, but also my last 15 years when they had become old men and I was getting old myself. I liked giving them anesthesia then for things other than war injuries, and that's a lot of stories go untold because I don't have time to keep talking, and I do forget some things. This picture is a little levity again. This was one of the corpsmen when we were back in the States. He thought we were not having enough fun, so he somehow got one of the nurses' dresses that we wore in this country, and he put it on and the nurse's cap and posed for this picture in his dress. He thought it was funny, and so did we. It was a good picture. And overseas, we always wore fatigues and boots and helmets, and I guess lots and lots of pictures, but if you want to, Steve, show any of these at a later time, you know.
I'll scan them.
It's all right, you know, but this was my birthday in May overseas, and I don't know how I got that cake, but somehow, I don't know, things, when you needed something, it showed up. The soldiers were so resourceful. They found everything you needed. Do you want to hear a story about a party we had? We were in a field somewhere, and we were working at that time and had patients, but the Army had some little, very, very small planes, and I call them all Piper Cubs because I didn't know any better. I don't know if that's what they were, but they were very small. And they flew over our field and they dropped invitations to a party. And with nothing going on except the war, we said, wow, a party. And the invitations said that they had liberated a swimsuit factory in France and implied that everybody would get a swimsuit. They didn't actually say it, but the inference was everybody would get a swimsuit. And we said, well, this is really, really wonderful. And they said, well, there was blackout everywhere, but they drove their Jeeps, and with very little vision, but they came in their Jeeps, and there was a party in a little area near our field. And of course, when we got there, there was music and fun and nice conversation, but no swimsuits and no factory. So we all forgave them. What else could we do? Another time, they dropped leaflets, and this was a different group, and they said, we have liberated a champagne factory, and come and we'll have a party. And they drove their Jeeps, and we never knew where we were going because there was blackout, and I don't know how they drove in it, but they did. And there actually was champagne, and they gave everyone a bottle of champagne. I didn't drink mine, I gave mine away, but anyway, that was, so one story was true and the other one was false. I hope that type of experience never happens again, but that's too much to hope for. But if you do have useful, exciting experience, try to take more pictures and keep a diary. It wasn't easy to keep a diary when you're traveling in trucks all the time and you don't have pencils and paper and all that kind of thing. I'd say keep a diary and join. And I'm glad that I joined the Army. It was a great experience, and it was necessary. It's taking